Eli Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by Tyree.
All right, we are back. Catch the Moment podcast. It's your boy, David Tyree, creating crazy memories out here in Vegas. We have been doing some amazing work out here, and I call this guy inspirational on so many different levels because I actually want mentors that are older than me, and I want mentors that are younger than me. And so I'm going to welcome my friend, Blake Wynn. How we doing, my boy?
I'm good, man. I was just told to catch the moment by David Tyree, so I'm doing awesome.
Listen, that's what we're doing, man. So you know what it is here. It's just really about, and for yourself, here's the funny thing, when I mention, Blake Wynn, and, we'll get to some of your backdrop, I'm always trying to make you like 25, 26. So just clear the air. How old are you right now?
I'm 22 right now.
22 years old. So I'm like, and the reason why is I'm like, he's too successful. He can't be 22. And so that's actually the most intriguing dynamic. We've had like conversations on every level. Like, I'm telling you about my son who's 20 years old and trying to figure out life. We're talking about business. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about sports. So, just to start this off and really kind of layer, you're 22 years old. You've obviously, everybody can Google some of what you've done. You found success early on as a teenager, as a YouTuber. And listen, right? State the obvious. The last name bears a whole lot of weight. But what has been your mindset as you've progressed as a young man in establishing your identity, your imprint as a person, and ultimately as a leader in business?
I think the most important thing is always knowing how you can provide value to somebody. I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand, and so my world has either been, in my teens, I was kind of that micro celebrity, and I got to see a lot of how people interact with you when they look at you like that. Mm-hmm. And then conversely, I always had my whole list of people that I looked at as like celebrities, people that I really looked up to. And I realized people that I really gravitated towards were the people who were always like give, and weren't just ask. Because as you know, everyone's always got something that they want to ask for. And so for me, and it's something that I even talk to my team a lot about now. It's like we're in a world now where 5 to 7 days a week, we're interacting with celebrities in person, people at the highest level. And it's like, if you want a picture, you want an autograph, go wait in line at one of their meet and greets. That's not what we do. We're here to provide them value. If you want a picture, then take it after 12 months of hanging out with them, right? Take it when you guys are actually friends and you've actually provided them value. So that way, when it comes time for you to ask and your ask is a photo, they're like, dude, I need that photo, right? You see what I'm saying? And so I think for us, it's always been about, all right, I'll give you a perfect example based on something that we did, right? Yeah. You don't need me to do anything that you're doing in life, but how can I maybe help you, right? Mm-hmm. I come from a social media background, so I can maybe give you tips and tricks on podcasts. You said, I'm coming to Vegas. I need help with X, Y, and Z, right? I'm born and raised here. Obviously, you mentioned the family name. We've got a connection or two in town. So
absolutely.
Leveraging those for your benefit is something that I'm very mindful of. Not so that way one day I can go, David, I got this mammoth of a favor that I got to ask you for. But just so that way, when you think about Blake, you aren't oh, that's that fan that I accidentally gave my number to, right? When you think about Blake, it's oh, that's who I hit up when I go to Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
That's someone who can help me do anything, right?
Yeah.
He can help me explain something to my son no different than he can help me get an endorsement deal on my social media.
Oh, this is bars. And the astonishing part about this is you've learned this at 22 years old, right? So that's what's more impressive. I find, and I don't know, everybody, we get into our generations, Generation X and Z. I don't know what the hell's going on, X, Y, Z, right? But ultimately, we do acknowledge certain differences. Younger people are getting much more flack in relation to the entitlement. They're real things, right? But what has kind of made you? Because I find it's either a young person is a dynamic leader already between 20 to 25, or they don't have a clue. So what even in light of you navigating that early, finding some niche in the digital space, what would you say is that message before we wrap back into some of your story?
I think there's two ways you can look at age. You can use it as an excuse or you can use it as a tool. So for me, I'm 22 years old. I know how much life I have left and how much experience I still have yet to gain. So I'm at the point in my life now where as much as, yes, I'm leading a business, I'm also doing so by absorbing and learning as much as I can from people that I respect. A very easy default for me could be, we're a marketing agency, right? So if I have a client come to me and they go, hey, we did a campaign and it fell short, right? Honestly, there's a lot of people that are my age, I'm not naming any names, I'm not referring to anybody, but just 22-year-olds in general that would go, oh, I didn't know any better. I'm 22. And they would actually default to that and use that as an excuse. And to me, that's a terrible excuse. Like, if you're 22, you're 14, whatever age you are.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you're 50, right, no matter what age you are, it's all about what you do. It's all about the value you provide. It's all about, like, the impact that you're actually going to make on somebody in a conversation, a business interaction, in a friendship, whatever it is. So, you know, being 22 is a mark of how long ago I was born. You know, like, to me, like, age is really not much more than that. You know, because at the same time, like, I mean, I know some 17, 18-year-olds that seriously, they'd blow your mind away.
Yeah.
These kids are geniuses. And I know 30-year-olds that I'm like, what did anything happen in the first 30 years of your life? Like, have you been outside? Because, like, I don't understand how this is where you're at, you know?
Yeah, this is dynamic. 'Cause I talk about how maturity, right, is based on, it's not, obviously, you get experience with age, right? So you have experience, but it doesn't always lead to maturity, right? And so, you know, you get old, you can't tell me nothing, you know, how long you been alive. Well, so ultimately, the decisions that you make is what determines your maturity level, right? So your mindset of being a sponge, a continuous learner, a lifetime that growth mindset that we all kind of know and talk about, clearly set your sails to have what I would say is, like, you know, just some dynamic success, man. So you're pouring into your team, you know, just for, you know, I know you and Hayes got a great relationship with Enclave Key. Tell me what role sports, right, has kind of like paved in your just your identity, you know, where you are and how you've arrived.
So when I was 4 or 5 years old is when I first started playing sports, and I played soccer. That was just what I grew up on.
Got to start with soccer.
I was way too small for football, way too small for everything else. Couldn't even pick up a basketball, right? So as I'm playing soccer, I was always midfield. And if you're a midfielder, you got to run a lot. And when you're 4 or 5, like, you don't really run out of steam, but at the same time, like, you get super, super tired, and all of a sudden the kid ends up faster than you. My mom and I are like best friends. My mom and I are
awesome.
I'm closer to my mom than anybody. Hayes, Brock, all these people that are, I mean, I consider family, all these people, but my mom and I are like as close as you get, right? So she'd be on the sideline at all my games, and I'd be chasing somebody down, or I'd be going to score, and all I could hear in my head, she'd scream from the sidelines, "Turn on the Jets." That's what she'd say, "Turn on the Jets."
Nice.
And as soon as she'd say that, it was almost like you redialed in, and I just got one extra step. I just got a little bit faster, because right as I'm getting tired, right as I'm trying as hard as I can, I heard something in my head go, just give it that much more. Give it that much more of an eke, right? Like, probably same as you, right? When that ball is coming to you, it's like, just don't let go, right?
Oh, man.
Like in a normal situation, you probably would have let go of that ball, right? In that situation, you can't.
Too far and few.
You're too far and few, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of look at life. Like, even this week, right? Like I said, like, every day this week was 10 a.m. to 6 a.m. So when my alarm rings at 9:45 and I want nothing more than to, like, honestly, like, go throw up and then go back to bed, I'm like, nope, turn on the Jets. Like, get up. Like, you got it somewhere to be. You got a breakfast to be at. Like, this is what you want to be doing. You got a great person waiting to meet with, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so for me, sports has been more so something that's developed my character traits, and the character traits that I lean on very heavily to run business.
Nice.
I was never that great of an athlete. I was very, very into football. I actually had, like, college offers even when I was in middle school.
Okay, dog.
But D2.
It's all
I was
good.
a quarterback. I loved it. When I was 13, I broke my hip and I couldn't walk for like 3 months, and I was like, I'm done with sports. Like, I'm not about to wake up. I'm 13 years old and I'm waking up in pain. Keep in mind as well, when I was 13 years old, like, I wasn't crushing it in business, but I already had my own business.
Yeah.
I paid taxes since I was 12 years old because I had my own business since I was 11. So, like, I had things that I was already excited about as well outside of the sport. And so for me, it was always a deep love of it. I'm a diehard sports fan. Like, you're not going to stump me on sports trivia kind of thing. And that's what's made the business so cool. That's what makes it so that way at 10 a.m. I want to get up, right? Like, there's always that saying, like, there's no reason to start a business unless you love what you do. And so for me, I'm like, I know what it takes to grow and scale a business. I've done it 3 times now. And so for me, like, when I start something, I'm like, I'm going to have to love this that way at 10 a.m. when I do feel like that. And 10 a.m. is a bad example because normally it's more like 6 or 7 or 8, whatever, right? I have to be able to get up. I have to be able to be excited about it, right?
That's good, because now you talk about the why, right? The real purpose. I mean, like when life dictates that, you know, you've earned the right to kind of like lay down, recover, rest, but it has to be something that triggers in your mind, right? Like, and I think, you know, sports does give us not just, it gives us that reality. I tell people, I said, there's a lot of things I don't enjoy doing. Like, I was never like the guy who was the gym rat, like, you know, but I was the guy who wanted to beat every person next to me. And so if those guys aren't next to me, I don't have the same drive. I can be honest. Like, now, you know, so I had some ultra competitive qualities, but me in the gym by myself, now, I knew I can go run by myself. I can go do some other things by myself, but not 4 days a week. So, you know, you got to know how you're motivated, how you're wired, and that's absolutely dynamic. So, like you kind of mentioned mom. I always like to get the behind the scenes, because life hits us all from like different directions, right? So I tell people, no one hits harder than life, right? Like, so because when you find success, you're young. And when you're young, you're very emotionally vulnerable.
Yeah.
So how are you navigating those, you know, we're talking about mental health all across the country. How are you navigating some of those weak moments as you're an emerging business leader as a teenager?
I think I always revert back to long-term vision, right? Like, don't get me wrong. There are days that suck. Everyone has days that suck,
Facts.
right? Like, and so my mom is someone who I always grew up idolizing from a character standpoint. Like, we don't do the same thing. My mom's not an entrepreneur. Like, we have our differences in terms of what we tactically do. But as a person, she's someone that I've always looked up to. And honestly, outside of her, I've had like my sports idols, right? Like, there's people that I grew up like, man, like, right, if you're a football player, when I'm 8 or 9 years old, like, you're larger than life. But like, I don't look up to you as a person. I don't even know you as a person, right? And so for me, like, I'll give you a perfect example, right? I think he was winning, what's the one for movies? Oscars, right? When you win an award, it's an Oscar for movies.
That's the big boy.
So Matthew McConaughey won an Oscar, and he gave this phenomenal speech where he says, the person who I idolize is me in 10 years, right? He's like, I always want to love, like, he's like, if me 10 years ago knew where I was standing today, that me would idolize the current me. Me 10 years ago, I'll give you an even better anecdote. Me 15 years ago at 8 years old, watching my first ever NFL football game. I think you may know about it, Super Bowl 42, Pats, Giants, I think was the team. Literally, first football game I ever watched in my life. Obviously, I remember your catch. Your catch was a big deal.
Oh, so that's a part of the pie. So tell me where you were and your memory.
Okay,
with the helmet
I was at my cousin, who is like 25 years older than me, as his house, named Sam Perkin. He'll love that I just name dropped him on your podcast.
Got to give it. Give it up, Sam.
So I'm watching the game at his house. I'm 8 years old. I had already started collecting football cards because you could buy them at Target, and I just didn't watch the sport. So I like knew all you guys. Maybe like again, I can't remember who I knew. I definitely knew like Eli. I definitely knew Michael Strahan. Like, I knew like the guys that you
definitely
would
didn't
always
know me.
get their cards. No, but like truly, like, you make the play that you make, and I'm like, wow. I mean, these people are larger than life. Like that. Like, what a cool thing. And now I'm sitting here today on this podcast with you 15 years later.
I love it.
If me 15 years ago knew that 15 years later I'd be sitting here with you talking about where I was during that moment, like, where was I? Like, I was 8, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I was still a little kid, right? And now we're getting to share those stories. And it's not even like I'm sharing those stories with you. Like, we have that very real relationship.
No, absolutely.
Largely outside of all of this. And so that, to me, is actually the part that 15 years ago I would have idolized about what I'm doing now, right? Like, a lot of, you know, like I say, like, we used to have, I mean, we they're still clients, but they're, you know, they're out of football now, but like Shane Victorino, Adrian Peterson, I mean, guys that we've got, Pac-Man Jones, guys that we've gotten to work with, party with, golf with, you know, go dinner, whatever it is. Like, man, 10 years ago, that would have been like, what? Because 10 years ago, like, I would get, you know, $100, $200 for my birthday, and like that $100, $200 was straight pumped into NFL shop. I'm getting a piece of memorabilia. I'm getting a jersey. Money's gone. Now it's like we get sent all, you know, it's just, it's such a different life.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a life that I've been designing since I was 8 years old.
There you go. You were sowing seeds into your future just by relation of being authentic, right? Like, it was the joy, it was the journey. It was like, man, I'm in pursuit. This I know the key word these days is manifest.
And you know what? This is you'll like this. So you're not supposed to gamble till you're 21. First time I gambled, I was 8 years old watching this football game with betting with I don't remember which uncle I made the bet on, but I didn't know enough about the records. So they were like, "You want to bet on the game?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, who do you want? They're like, "I'll take the Patriots." I'm like, "All right, Giants is fine." Like, I figured, like, well, if you're both in the Super Bowl, like, clearly you deserve to be there. Like, now in retrospect, I'm like, man, I can't believe no points, no nothing. You guys were 17-point dogs in that game, and I gave him a straight up line, and I took the $10 home, and so it's just funny. Like, I just wanted to finish adding to that the story of what I remember about the catch. I'm sure a lot of people will probably remember it more clearly than I do, but no, it was definitely one of those moments that really made me fall in love with the sport, which has honestly largely dictated my life since then.
I think it's been an awesome journey for you, man. Just like I said, I was always keen as I got to know you, your story, and like I said, this is just something just random, real, and I appreciate relationships. Like, me and you have this offline conversation, and most people just don't get it. I find it, and the good thing is, the more conversations I have with more people, there are more people who are starting to understand that you never lose when you give. So that's one of my sayings. You never lose when you give, and amazingly, you've learned that up to this point. Whereas I call them, like, whether they're legacy owners or legacy leaders, some older generations, and it's a take mentality or a bottom line mentality that leaves people empty, man. It sucks. So, like, in light of you kind of recognizing that, living by that early on, like, what is, as you're creating this company with Enclave and Key, like, what is the true fabric of what you're trying to create within your culture, and ultimately what you're trying to deliver through your company?
It's so Enclave. So I'll take you back steps. The word Enclave means a group that is different than those surrounding it. And so, just by definition, I think that what we do as an agency very much so embodies that. Because a normal marketing agency, you go to them, you give them the money that you want to spend on ads or on influencers or on press or whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah, they execute whatever they told you they were going to execute, and that's the end of it, right? Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Sean McPeak is a client of mine. We do all his PR work, right? Nice. And so, like, Sean's coming to Vegas. Hey, I'm going to be in town. Are you around? I'm like, dude, I honestly, I don't have time to get dinner. He's like, oh, like, I've been podcasting, blah, blah, blah. You, on the other hand, are hitting me up. Hey, I'm podcasting, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I can connect dots here. So really, the purpose of Enclave is to be the nucleus of this hyper-connected network of just some of the coolest individuals in the world, and then being that tool that brings them together. Nice. And honestly, 98% of the time, those things there's no way to monetize those. I'm not like texting you or Sean like, hey, like, here's my Venmo, like, shoot me some cash for like the introduction or something like that. No, but seriously, like, there are so many people who give for the sake of keeping score. And I think that is like such an antithesis of what, like, I want to do. Like, I've had people be like, hey, like, I did X, Y, and Z for you when you were on YouTube. Like, I need you to do all this for me for free right now. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm so far off what you're saying. And it's not because I don't want to reciprocate value that was given to me, but I don't do it in a transactional manner. I do it because that's how I choose to live. Like, I chose to go down the road of, I just want to get to hear more stories, right? Like, truthfully, the reason I designed the business the way it's designed right now is because, like I said, at 22 years old, I know I need to learn. I don't really learn that well in school. That's why I dropped out. So I decided I was going to learn from the best CEOs in the world, the best former athletes in the world. Like, I want to learn from the best, because I think then it's not a far stretch of the imagination to presume that you can become the best, right? Brilliant. And so for me, this is just a way that, we can make some money along the way. We can have some fun along the way. We can test our skills. We can do our thing. We can travel the world. I mean, we've designed something that's quite fun, not only just for me, but I think if you asked anyone in our staff, and you've met a bunch of them, they love what they do. They've been here for a long time, but also very similar to me. They're all very young. They're very motivated. And they're people who all, like, originally it was my vision, right? Because originally it was just me, but now it's a company vision. Everyone has the same vision. And, like, these are sound bites that I think you'll honestly probably hear from a lot of different people. Yeah. The question is how are those things actually applied? Like, if you walked into our office, you could palpably feel everything that I'm telling you right now. You walk into Nike, you might not palpably feel that. You know what I mean? Like, you walk into a Nike store, like, the person at the cashier, like, they probably don't like their job. And if they do, then the person next to them doesn't. The guy in the stockroom maybe doesn't. Yeah. Right? Like, if you don't like what you do at Enclave, like, I'm the first person, like, give me a piece of paper, let's write you a good old letter of rec. And not only that, where do you want to work? You want to work at a hotel? Well, I happen to have some contacts here. Let's get them on the phone and let's get you over there, right? Like, because to me, I'm like, you're still young too, and you're trying to build your story. And so if your story does not become a part of my story, our story, whatever it is, that's okay too. You see what I'm saying? Like,
no losses.
No, like that's exactly it, right? Is any situation, how can you walk away feeling like you won? Now, to me, I can walk away feeling like I won if I feel like I provided value. Like I get more of a high providing value than receiving value, just because to me it's like, man, like imagine if 10 years ago I knew that I would actually be in a position in life where I could provide David Tyree this much value.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Imagine if I knew that I could provide this guy with this value.
Yeah.
And at the same time too, like how do you actually earn a seat at the table? Because being 22, it is very tough to earn a seat at the table. Like I might not take my age that seriously. I'm coming around for that.
I'm coming for that.
But other people do. Other people look at it like, oh, he's 22. Like what can he really do? What experience has he really had, right? And they're not wrong. I want to be around that table because I'm trying to learn from your experience. I'm not trying to tell you all about mine.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
It's excellent.
So I talk about my own enough.
You can flip gears because I think, like I said,
hell yeah.
There's the reality. I think people, once they've established some measure of credibility, you know, like for some people, it's like something that says that I can't go back, right? So there's this ability that you've accomplished something, but you're still in this great position where you know you have, like man, I got a lot to learn, but I can still add value to somebody that's younger and or older than me.
Yeah, 100%.
This stuff is huge because, listen, I'll shout it to the rooftop because, you know, like everybody gets the, you know, I kind of laugh at like the way life, like, you know, words start coming out there. I hear manifest is like the word of the year. Everybody's, you know, manifest. So, but I do know that words frame your reality. Words frame our future. So I get it. I'm over here talking about like, man, I need younger mentors too, because I grew up in like my life. I have a kid at 21 years old. You immediately mature, and and I can't do some of the things that a grinding 20-year-old can do, especially being an athlete, right? So you're just less available to do, and that's why I appreciate people who don't waste their 20s. I'm like, yeah, it's easy to waste your 20s. I call it the young and dumb decade. It's like,
no, 100%,
right? Like some would say, young, dumb, full of cum, right? Like all that stuff. So. It's pretty dope when people can find that productive element, whereas you're learning you kind of, like you said, learning through experience, right? Because the academics and like I said, there's some value there, but thank God the it's kind of shifting where people are understanding that when you acquire skills, you're learning. When you acquire understanding, you're learning. So this is freaking dope, man. So. Like as it stands, the next phase, I want to double back to like, now everybody wants a YouTube page, right? Yeah. Like I'm over here, trying to figure out how to, get folks to subscribe to catch the moment, right? We over here providing value and content. You're a pioneer in this space. Like, do they coexist at this point in your life? Because now when you have something that appears to be a traditional business model, like tell me that part.
They don't really coexist for me anymore. The skills still do, but like I myself, I don't still create that much content for socials. Mm-hmm. I mean, I post on Instagram, I post on TikTok here and there, and believe me, I still get how to do it in a way that it works for the intended audience.
Yep.
But I'll be super honest with you, and I don't normally say this kind of thing on podcasts, but we're close, so I will.
Go for it, bro. I want it.
I didn't love YouTube. I loved the business of YouTube. Like, to me, like, it's not that I was like, oh, I don't like being an influencer. I don't like taking photos or something like that.
Yeah.
I did, and it had its place in my life. But to me, from the moment it really, really started for me, it was like, this is going to be a chapter because I'm never going to go to the NFL, and I want to experience what it would be like to have this kind of personality. At the same time, when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, what's the best way to build a network? Provide value. How do you provide value when you're a sophomore in high school? Like, if you got a platform that has 500,000 followers on it, you can interact with anyone you really want to. At least anyone who has desire to do something in social or whatever it may be. And so YouTube was essentially the prerequisite for Enclave and Key as it stands today, the same way that, college is a prerequisite for being a doctor, right? Like, I put myself through my own college education, if you will, in my own space by doing YouTube. And I loved it. Yep. It had its time in my life. I wouldn't want to go back to it. Mm-hmm. It's tough, I mean, I gave a perfect example of like, when in 2017, I had been on YouTube for 12 months. I had 200,000 subscribers, but I had like a very cult audience. Like I had 200,000 subscribers, but I posted videos every day, like vlog format.
Yeah.
I get 150 to 200,000 views. All my subscribers were watching every single day. Wow. So I was like, man, I can go on tour. And my mom, this is where my mom and I have always had our little disagreements, but obviously healthy ones. I'm like, I'm going to go on tour. She's like, Blake, don't waste your time, because like she was really into it with me. So she's like, I know about Logan Paul and Jake Paul, like they're on tour right now, but they got 10 million subscribers. You're not going to go on tour and have that kind of experience. I was like, no, I can, because we can design the tour in a way where everyone who comes gets provided with value, and people always love receiving value. There's no one in the world who doesn't love receiving value.
Facts.
And so we ended up doing 28 cities in 31 days. I was 17 years old. It was a summer between my junior and senior year of high school. Over 1,000 people showed up at every city, and we did like cities like Milwaukee. We did Rahway, New Jersey. I mean, we did some cities that you probably wouldn't expect a YouTuber with 200,000 followers to go do. 1,000 every spot, sold out of merchandise, met people for 5-6 hours straight, had as much fun as I could have. And the truth of it was, and I have a great letter I would love to show you.
Oh man, please.
On June 10th, 2016, I wrote myself in my notes app on my phone. I said, I'm not going to touch this note for a year. If I don't have 10,000 subscribers and over 100,000 views on my channel a year from today, I'm quitting, because clearly this is just not the right thing for me. And at some point, to me, like every entrepreneur has a different opinion on failure. To me, like at some point, you actually need to accept it, move on, and go to the next thing. In my opinion, like you can't just sit there and just get smacked by failure all day. Like I don't like, I think that's a great soundbite, and Elon Musk, when he says it, it's super convincing. But that's a guy who's never failed, right?
Come on, bro.
Or that's a guy who's failed a couple times, but he's doing all right. So he's like, oh no, failure's fun. Jeff Bezos, failure's fun. Like no, like that's great, but because I'm not you yet, like failing doesn't sound like a cool, like experiential moment for me.
Bro, you killing it.
Failure sucks, right?
Failure sucks. Like I got 7 kids behind my failure. That's why I tell nah, man, like I can't afford to fail. You know, this is a bar, because this is, like I said, you know how many people can't set realistic. It's like, okay, this is failing is a possibility, and it could be recognized, right? And this is kind of like when players, they're at the tail end of their career. They still want to play, and they're working out every day. And I'm like, how long are you going to do that? For 3 years? Like, and that's kind of the idea is like, man, I realized I didn't enjoy it as much in that 7th season where, you know, no calls are coming. I get a couple calls. I'm not in camp. I'm like, man, I need camp. If you want to get these bars and these jewels, I need that. I need at least a workout paycheck to keep me motivated. Yeah. So this is like where there's a great failure. And I don't think there's this perfect law about it, just like you said, but a willingness to say, you know what, if this is not where I need it to be, we're going to pivot it, and we're going to find where the recipe really comes together. And, you know, that's a real bar of success, man. So like talk like and tell me how that experience obviously.
Yeah. So going back to what you said about manifestation, like when I wrote that note to myself, that wasn't me writing a note like, you can default back in a year from now, look at this and go, you know what, it's time to quit. Like that note for a year was like my biggest fear. Like when it wasn't working the first couple months, like I'd look at that note and be like, you put 10,000 subscribers on this damn piece of paper and you got 100 right now. Like, what are we doing over here, man, right? No, so seriously, it became something that like, to me, it's not even just manifestation. It's like truly like there wasn't a world where it wasn't going to go the way that it went. So I intentionally, June 10th, 2017, 1 year later, when I was time to read the note again, I was standing there and I was reading the note, but I was reading the note at the first stop of my own tour in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 2,000 people. We closed down an entire block of Water Street in downtown Milwaukee for this YouTuber 200,000. I'm standing on this little stage and I'm reading this note. I'm like, honestly, like crying in front of 2,000 people. I'm 17 years old. Like, it's like, man, like I actually did it. But it's like, and what I said to them as soon as I finished reading it is I was like, guys, you didn't know it, but I've been here for a year.
Yeah.
Like I've known this is like where it's like going. Like this has been so much sacrifice. You know, I didn't party in high school. Like it honestly, like I had a girlfriend for 4 years in high school that it honestly didn't work out because of how busy I was with YouTube. Like there was a lot of real sacrifice that's taken place in my life to make the business side of this all work. And I don't need sympathy for that. I chalk it all up to when there actually comes a day where I've got my wife and I've got my kids and we have a great life. It's because of this kind of stuff that's happened in the background. But even now, like I was literally talking to Brock about it, who's my business partner. Like I was at Encore Beach Club at the Wynn on Thursday night, and it was myself, Peyton Barber, Andre Reed, Braxton Berrios, Edgar and James, Chase Young. I mean, the list goes on, and we were all at the same table. We're all vibing. We're all having a good time. And like Enclave and Max Management, one of our new partners,
nice.
Shout out to Max Lepselter. We kind of put that experience on together, and it's like I saw that 4 years ago when it was me and Hayes talking about what we're going to end up doing. You know what I mean? And it's like I could tell you things right now that you'd be like, I don't even understand how Enclave ends up there in 5 years from now, but I already see it.
Yeah,
I already know where it's going, and it's a really, really long chess game. Like I've told everyone in my staff to watch the show called The Blacklist. The Blacklist.
People love that show.
The reason it's such a fantastic show is because there's actually a lot to learn in that show from the standpoint that if he needs to do something, it takes him 8 or 9 episodes of all these different introductions, all this roundabout, traveling the world. I mean, obviously in the Blacklist case, right, killing people. I mean, there's things that don't translate to the real life application of it, but it shows you how much goes into one moment. Right? Now let me flip it on you because this is your podcast, right?
This is good.
How much in your life, if you were talking about your life as a story, right? Where does the story of the catch start for you? Because I guarantee, and again, it might be based on how close you are to that person, whatever.
Yeah.
But let's say you and I are really, really tough, right? If I sat down and said, David, I got an hour and a half. Tell me the story of the catch. The catch took, 7 seconds? But I guarantee you got a great 90-minute story how it happened. You probably got an 8-hour story. You got a 10-minute story. You got your own story chopped up into so many different versions because you've said it so many times. Like, I get it. But again, think about that moment and when it actually started for you.
Yep.
It's not the moment that matters. It's everything leading up to it. That moment doesn't happen if you don't have the support system you have, if you're not on the team that you're on, in the moment that you're in, if you're not on the field, if some other guy doesn't get injured, right? So you go. There's another element of it too, right? Is like everyone says luck is important. Like, yeah, luck is super important. The question is how much of your own luck can you create? Because you're always going to have luck that happens, right? Like if you're behind a guy,
we call it providence around here. We don't entertain luck,
Call it what you want.
No doubt.
90% of luck is created, but the people in life that get a little extra 10% boost on their luck, because they create the other 90% of it, they know how to handle it. And so they make that 10% feel like an additional 100, and they go kill everything they do.
That's a bar.
And you're a perfect example of it, though, right?
Oh, listen, I am the example of it. That's for sure.
like I literally don't know anyone.
Listen, I am 100% the example of it but that's really what it is. That's the reason why we're having these conversations, because when someone accomplishes something significant, that is what everyone takes away. That's all they want to know about, right? And I think that we get it, right? When you accomplish, they want to know, like, man, how'd you do that? And what you value is, the process. What you value is the pain point. What you value is the late night phone call with mom when it was a struggle.
Yeah,
that's the part where, well, man, if you only knew, right? And so that's what we're focused in on. Everything that Catch the Moment is about: process, journey, and pain point. Like what, just getting to the pain points. What are the things that because I'm, like I said, I call myself a business owner. I don't call myself an entrepreneur just yet. Okay. Because I think there's a creative element, and we water down the use of the entrepreneur. And I would crown you with an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. And I'm a business owner, and I'm a budding entrepreneur, because there's a creative process and a mindset. Like, man, somebody paid me $500,000 right now, I go to work. Like that's how practical I am. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just like, yeah, it's just you pay me the right amount of money. What you want me to do? So, what has been the pain points for you as an entrepreneur? It's like, everybody, what you're good at. But what is the things where you're like, man, I need to smuggle this skill set in?
I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a really honest answer to this, and I mean it in the absolute nicest way, but I think it's something I'm going to disagree with you on.
Go for it.
That question, to me, is that's a business owner question, not exactly an entrepreneur question, from the standpoint of, to me, I really don't think entrepreneurship is a skill set. I don't think it's a job. It's not a profession. entrepreneurship is a personality trait, and I think it's one that you're born with. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't become a business owner.
And actually, we're actually saying the same thing. I think you just explained it way better.
Okay, maybe so. But like for me,
it's a DNA type of thing, right?
I totally think it's a DNA thing. Obviously, it's something that's very much so in my DNA, and we could talk about that if you'd like to as well. But for me, being an entrepreneur, you take so many risks that if you're a business owner, you would never dream of taking. But as an entrepreneur, you're actually not comfortable if you're not taking those level of risks from the standpoint that you're not actually doing something that's ambitious enough that it's worth doing, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I actually would also challenge what you said and say that you are an entrepreneur. You opened up a smoothie shop. You didn't go into that thinking that was going to be a slam dunk, did you?
No,
right?
I didn't. Well, it's definitely a risk. I'm actually riskier than my life, exudes because, I have 7 kids, right? So I use this analogy.
Another example.
Yeah. I'm very risky, right? I was sliding them on in there. Lots of risk. Right? So, but the fact that if it's one thing if I take the risk and I get hurt, right? And this is an intriguing conversation for so many different people. Like when I look at a young person and they're taking these risks, it's no less amazing, but there's also a space in my mind where it's like I'm not as impressed because they don't have as much to lose. Now, like money, because once you devalue money from a emotional standpoint, you're in it for the kill, right? Meaning like it's like hunting. It's like I'm in it for the kill. So success and what really drives the individuals is very different. Whereas if my family gets hurt because I overexpose them on a particular decision, that would crush me, man. That would crush me. And that's what kind of keeps me out of certain decisions.
Yeah, my point is not that you take such wild risks that you end up failing. Honestly, when I get asked about risk, I have all these great answers because I can name so many times where I've taken risk and there's been a lot of reward on the back end.
Nice.
But in those times, like just being honest, like I don't ever feel like I've actually taken like a risk. Like I just feel like I've done things that are ambitious, and the process of doing that, other people look at it like, how did you take this risk? Whatever. I'm like, you look at it as a risk because you don't think the same way that I do. Like I actually live in a state of maximum comfort when my risk tolerance is being a little bit tested, when truly I think it's a little bit of an abnormal personality type to have. Like I don't think it's something that people should aspire for. And like I also think that entrepreneurs do a really good job, especially because of Instagram, of like, to me, like if someone says explain your Instagram to me now when I'm not an influencer, I'm like, that's my highlight reel, right? Like that's my huddle, right? Like that's me with, the biggest clients, the coolest people in the most fun times, that's whatever. Like I don't post Instagram selfie videos when I'm sitting in bed at 2 a.m. texting my business partners like, hey, I have this really cool idea. Like I need to talk to you about it like first thing in the morning. Because who would want to see that, right? And then there's other people that be like, well, everyone will want to see that. That's a cool experience, whatever. It's like, yeah, but the only way to understand it is to live like that 365. And you're not going to get that out of my 60-second reel. So I don't even want to waste your time with 60-second reel. It's not going to make any sense. Because again, it's also like very tailored to what I'm doing. Not, I'm not like Gary Vaynerchuk, good friend of mine. I, nothing but respect for him. But like, I'm not that guy. Like I don't have it in me to do daily V. Like I don't have it in me to go give, 80 keynote speeches a year. Like, because to me, if I'm going to give that keynote speech and fire some people up, again, like I do think about who I'm providing value to. Not that I don't want to do that. And I do that sometimes. I mainly will do it, honestly, in the context of I'll go talk to college classes, something like that. I don't really want to do the conference thing. I would love nothing more than 80 times a year to stand in front of the staff. And if I'm going to spend that hour giving a keynote and like trying to fire people up, I'm going to fire them up.
Wolf of Wall Street, baby.
Yeah, like, well, and again, like that's the part of me that I will say I almost like do reel in as more like selfish. Like I'm not saying like, oh, everything I say is that good that I want to save it for my team or something like that. It's more so that I'm just like, if I, at the end of the day, it's all about the energy that you put out to people. Yeah. And it's really important to put out your best foot and your best energy all the time. And I think if you're not going to do that, you're doing something that, like, to me, that's losing. Right? And so, like, it's an interesting topic for me. I'm really curious your opinion on this. Like, to me, like, I don't feel cocky saying it. I feel like I'm a winner. And the reason I would say that, and I would say that about you, I say that about all my friends, is because to me, winning is more about avoiding losing, right? Like losing is not providing value when you get into a room. Losing is getting in a room that you worked very hard to be in and then blowing the moment, right? Like losing is your alarm goes off and you decide you're not going to get up, right? Like there's so many ways to lose, and usually losing is the easier thing to do. So as long as you avoid those traps, you're a winner. Like I don't think being a winner is like actually that difficult. I think a lot of people chalk it up to more than it is because they attach to athletics. Like there can only be one winner. That's where I totally disagree. I think there's 360 million people in this country. I bet a huge percentage of them are winners, right?
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean that they've got this huge bank account. It doesn't mean that they've got this wild Rolodex. It doesn't mean anything like that. Winning in this country could mean that you live in, you know, some part of middle America that, you know, no one's ever heard of, but you've got your wife, you've got your 2 kids, you got your little picket fence, you know, the whole little American dream on that side of it, right? Like you're a winner. And like, you both might work 80 hours a week, but you guys are winners because you guys are still getting up and you're still going to work and you're still providing for your kids and your kids are still good people.
Absolutely.
You won.
No, you're killing it because that's really what's important to me, right? Because like my parents, they were winners, right? Like and being able to, like, you know, I get in a different space where I talk about how my dad he's always been awesome, dynamic, but he's become my hero. My dad right now works full time at my juice bar.
Wow.
He works full time at my juice bar. Even better, right?
And your guys' juice bar is not viral, so we haven't had enough conversations.
Oh, Enclave! I told you, Enclave Key showed up in our DM, so we got to figure it out.
I know, we definitely do.
So
we'll help you out.
It's the coolest thing. I'm gonna tell you this one quick story because this is how I know what you're saying is absolutely true. What makes him a winner was not just how he supported me, not just how proud he's been. You know, the moment I take this next step, because he loves to work. So it's like, I'm not killing my dad, trust me. He loves to work. Thank God he's in great health. And, you know, he's like, man, you know, let me know when you got something part-time, man. You know, and I was working with the Giants, so it's not like I could bring him into the facility. And so we opened a juice bar. I said, Dad, you want to do some part-time work at the juice bar? And, of course, that all goes to crap, right? Just like the helmet catch when Eli drops back. It all goes to crap because COVID comes when we open our business, and he goes to full-time. But the craziest part wasn't just that he was there and how dynamic of a worker he is. He's like a cheat code for us back there. But it was, man, he would be buying our juice just to make sure that, like, in his mind, he was still my dad. Like, making sure I could do everything possible to ensure that my son is a success. So, like, I haven't been able to, like, you know, lay up the biggest, like, you know, killer things and buy my dad a house and do amazing things that he deserves. But he's gonna know he's my hero, right? And that's what we're talking about a winner. So this is so dope. Like, so moving into when I think about, I don't want to kind of like, do you have some chip in your shoulder in light of, and like, I think you kind of displaced from an ego standpoint where ego's not a big issue for you, but when people do hear your last name and they associate and lights go off in their head, like, does that create a chip? Or is there a goal for you to, you know, like, create your own life legacy outside of what comes with your last name?
I'll tell you a really funny story. So I wish I had a little bit of a different background than I did. I think it might make this a better story, but I'll be super honest. Growing up, I had everything that a person could have. My dad was Steve's right-hand guy. He was president of the hotels. I grew up in a 15,000 square foot house, the largest and most expensive house in the entire city of Las Vegas at the time. Like, bigger than Steve's because Steve lived in the hotel. Like, there wasn't something I could tell my parents I wanted that I wouldn't get. 8 years old comes around. My parents get divorced. We sell the house. I end up living my whole life with my single mom. Dad goes to China and doing what he's doing with Steve and goes on to move to Los Angeles, whatever. And literally my mom and I spent 8 months living in a hotel room, like just one room. Went from 15,000 square feet to like 150 square feet. Like, I'm not even exaggerating, for 8 months. Like, very, 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 very new to me. And then it was like rebuilding. And so because of that, my parents got divorced. Steve is my dad's older brother. So Steve and I fell out of touch, didn't talk for 10 years. But at 11, because my mom's not really making any money, I'm 11 years old. Like, it's kind of like, all right, well, we live in a hotel. Like, let's start to figure out what we're going to do. And I wanted to contribute. And so that's when I started reselling sneakers and everything like that. And so I was kind of forced to grow up really, really fast. And I'd been around a lot of those kinds of folks and everything like that. So in 2016, when I started the YouTube channel, 2 or 3 months after I started, I had 10,000 subscribers. It's growing really quickly. I just had a video go viral, and the Review Journal, which is like the big local paper in town, reaches out. They say, hey, we want to do a little column on you because you're local, whatever. So yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know how interviews with traditional reporters work. Okay. So when you interview with a reporter, what you say, I mean, they print that. I thought this guy's trying to get to know me so he can write a good story. So he's saying, how much money do you make? And truthfully, went out, and it's all in print, so I don't mind saying it now.
Yeah.
He said, how much money do you make? I said, this year I think I made $125,000. I was reselling sneakers. I was already making 6 figures when I was 16 years old. Right? He says, oh, so like, you're 16. Did you buy yourself a car? Yeah, I bought myself a Mercedes, CLA 250, brand new. He says, all right, where do you go to school? Meadows. What's your GPA? I told him everything there was to know about me. His last question, he goes, so like, similar question, right? Like, do you feel like you're in the shadow, whatever? I said, look, man, by the time I'm done with my entrepreneurial journey, Steve's going to be known as nothing more than my uncle. That soundbite right there. No, so listen, I hadn't talked to Steve in like 8 or 9 years. I didn't care, whatever, right? So because of that soundbite combined with some of the different material that I gave him in that, I think he realized he maybe had a better story than he thought he did. So instead of it being a Sunday column, cover of the Sunday paper in Las Vegas, big my picture, success in the jeans or the sneakers, and the sub headline in black, quote, by the time I'm done being an entrepreneur, Steve Wynn will be remembered as nothing more than my uncle. Didn't care. Two-page editorial on the cover of the paper. I get called into my school. Why'd you tell him what you... My mom's going nuts. I'm like, I didn't know. Obviously, I wouldn't have done that had I known it was going to get printed. That kind of created safety hazards for me. I'm like this 5'6", 124-pound, 16-year-old kid that like is earning a bunch of money. Yeah, probably a liability. Anyhow, later that day, I got a call from a number I don't have on my phone. Hello? Yes? Is this my nephew, Blake? Who's this? This is your uncle, Steve. The person who is going to be remembered as such when you're done with your entrepreneurial life. Hi, Uncle Steve. It's been 10 years. How are you? He says, Blake, do you really believe that's how it's going to work for you? I said, honestly, yeah. He says, good. Dinner tomorrow night. Be here. I hadn't seen him in 10 years. I get there the next day for dinner. Since then, we have had like the closest relationship. We talk, and granted, being close with someone like that, like we only talk probably twice a month. Yep. But you're talking about a guy who's like, I mean, literally like one of the most 100 successful entrepreneurs of all time. He's done a lot of amazing things in his life. He's become an advisor to our company. He's been a ton of fun to really get to know. He's opened a lot of doors just in terms of like the way that my mind works. Right? Like Steve's never like given me gifts and things like that, like ever.
Giving you game.
No, he's given me like serious game. Like he's taught me a lot about building a culture, a lot about building business, a lot about deal making. Like and honestly, when you're talking to a guy like that, if we had 4 hours, I could regurgitate a lot of it to you. But like, you hear something different from guys like that than you hear from the Gary V's of the world, honestly. And the stuff that you hear from guys like that is the real stuff that really changes your business. Like being told how important self-awareness is. How do you then apply that later on? Yeah. Right? Like Steve will be like, let me tell you, like Steve teaches by telling anecdotes. So he'll tell me these different stories that have occurred during his life. And he basically makes it my job to sit there and figure out how to apply it to myself.
It's good.
You see what I'm saying? And so it's been tremendous. He loves that I say that. And so like, it was so funny. Like one of the last times I was with him, I mean, and like so Steve's blind, right? So Steve has retinitis pigmentosa, so he can't see it. What happens is, starting when you're about 55, it's what's the word when it gets passed down? Genetic. You can't cure it. He's donated over $100 million trying to cure it. He can't cure it, and your vision gets more and more of a pinhole till you can't see. Okay, so Steve's got all these people around him that help him live. Yeah, and obviously he's got the money to afford to do that. And so like he's got like someone who essentially spends all day with his phone. And so whenever someone texts him, they read him his text. Someone calls, sir, this person's on speaker, and they give him it. Or you can't see, right? Yeah. So I'll be with him, and we'll be with him for a day. I was with him on his birthday once. I have never, sir, Queen is on the phone, sir, like Queen Elizabeth, sir. Okay. President Trump is on the phone, sir. Different. Former President Obama is on the phone, sir. Michael Jordan's on the phone, sir. Warren Buffett's on the line, sir. Elon Musk is on the line. Everyone calling to wish him a happy birthday on January 27th. I mean, literally, that's the kind of guy he is. I was there for his birthday dinner. We're sitting around this round table. Wilbur Ross, who's the treasurer of the United States. This is when Trump was still president. Yeah. Trump, I mean, they're all there. They're all like, that's the circle, right? Like you're talking about, frankly, like I bet people like that. That's who Gary looks at the way that most people look at Gary, right?
True,
like it
true.
is a level. But I'm gonna give you like one example because I guarantee you, as I tell you this quick little story, your wheels are gonna start spinning about your own business, and the people listening to this, your wheels are gonna start spinning about your own business, especially if you have employees. He tells me a story. He says, in the 1980s, we had Golden Nugget here, and then we went to Atlantic City to do Golden Nugget.
Okay.
Right? It was before Wynn, Treasure Island, Bellagio, Mirage. He built all those. Long before that, when it was just Golden Nugget, he went to go do a Golden Nugget Atlantic City. He says, everyone in Atlantic City was doing terrible. There was like Resorts World Properties doing terrible. Everyone's doing terrible. And one day, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was maybe the Taj Mahal. A lot of their employees got laid off.
Okay.
So Steve goes, I need to call a meeting because everyone's freaking out. Everyone felt like their job wasn't secure, everything like that. He had over 300 employees when he did this, okay? He calls this meeting and he says, so you guys know, everyone around town isn't doing so well and we're sitting here emphasizing how important it is to be the best. Well, I want you guys to know something. You guys are the best. And the reason all of them are struggling is because we're the ones that are winning right now. And he says, so because of that, I know you guys thought you were called here because we were going to do some job cuts today. He says, that's not what we're going to do. He says, I need everyone to go home, but on your way home, I need you to stop at the Toyota dealership, and we've prepaid for all of you to get a brand new car. So while the other hotel in the same market doing the same thing that Steve and Gold Nugget Wynn, right, did, they laid off a bunch of their employees. Well, everyone at Wynn got a brand new car because they were really the best at what they did. Yeah. Right? And so, like, as I'm telling that, like, your mind, and Steve is an beyond eloquent speaker. I mean, no one talks like Steve. I mean, if you ever listen to one of YouTube videos, I mean, just his voice alone. I mean, he's a total OG. Like, in early days, I mean, his best friends growing up, Frank Sinatra, Bill Gates. I mean, he was one of those kinds of like Rat Pack, Dean Martin, Joey Bishop. But he was like literally like Frank would joke around and say, you're like the fifth member of the Rat Pack. I mean, that's how close he was with them. And so he's got that kind of classy, like 1950s swag to him.
Different kind of legend.
But as I share that story, a lot of times people's mind will go, okay, so like I got a juice bar, right? I got 6 employees, right? Like, I'm not buying them a new Toyota tomorrow, but what can I do to show them that they're doing a good job if they actually are, right? Yep. And if they're not, he's taught a lot of other things about how do you get the best out of people, right? Right? Like Gary Vee always say, when people hire, sometimes they try to move people the wrong role. I'd rather just triple down on what you're good at. Great soundbite, but there's so many more layers to it. Yeah. And I will admit, I've had this unbelievably lucky circumstance in my life being related to Steve where I can sit there and let him explain to me really how to tap into all these things for hours and hours and hours and hours on end.
That's something called favor, my friend, and I won't apologize for that.
No, I mean, look, it is what it is. Like, again, like, I look at it this way, right? Again, Steve's a perfect example. Steve did not reach out to me or quite frankly care until I was doing something that like earned that. Boom. Right? Like, so to finish the story example I was giving, I don't remember, I want to say it was Leo, calls up Steve the last time I'm with him in September in Beverly Hills. And Steve answers the phone. Leo, I'm with my nephew. He's got the gene. He's got this business. Because I'm the last guy with the last name Wynn, because Steve has 2 daughters. They already changed their last name, and I have a sister. Snap. She has the last name Wynn, but not an entrepreneur or anything like that.
I know how that means in the family. That's some real stuff right there.
So he's like, he's got the gene and the name. He's like, talk to him. How are you? You're doing well, all right. And then Steve, because everything's on his time. Like, he's that guy. Yep. So he's like, all right, great talking to you. Bye. Forgot to even ask him what he was calling for, or like anything like that. Like, it's really one of those people that, I mean, they just make you go, wow. You know, they really just impress you, and they provide so much value. Yeah. And honestly, like, I will say, like, there's elements that I don't, but I mean, in a business sense, obviously someone I look up to. Of course. But more so just someone I learn from. And honestly, I think those are 2 different things. I don't look up to the people that I learn from. Like, I'm learning from you because like I want to do something that you're doing. Yep. And I feel like I either can or one day will do it better.
This is fantastic. So you mentioned your mom already. Is there anyone else that you really look up to?
Like, in a weird way, I actually look up to like a lot of the people at Enclave from the standpoint that like, I'm like, man, like this, okay, going back to like the being wired as an entrepreneur thing. You said, if I got offered $500,000 to do a job, I got no pride, I'm going to do it. me, you could offer me $50 million to go do a job. I'm not doing it. Like there's no
Makes
world.
perfect sense.
Because like, not because of the money, because I'm not doing what I'm doing for the money. Because if I was doing what I was doing for the money, I probably could have gone and gotten some kind of job like that.
I'm certain.
I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to take something that is a vision in the back of my head, and then 10 years later, I want to see it. I want to see what it looks like. I want to design their life, right? I don't need to be on the Forbes 400. You know, that's not an ambition of mine. I never will get there.
Yeah.
So when you ask, like, who do you look up to? Like, the fact that there's other people who we've brought on at Enclave who rally around that vision so much that they work as hard as I do to like make that happen. I'm like, man, like, I mean, you're literally doing something that I could never do.
Yep.
Like, never mind that I've got props for you. Like, I actually really look up to, like, my business partner, Brock Hayes. Like, there's people in our company. I'll give you another example, and he'll love the shout out. Like, we have this kid, CJ Jeremill, the one that reached out to you. And I was like, dude, like, anything that he says he's got for you, like, I'm going to bat for it. Like, again, like, I don't have my hand in every last detail of the business.
Yeah.
We're a little larger than that now,
Of course.
CJ is one of those guys, like, seriously, in terms of hours per week worked, probably works harder than I do at this point in time.
Fantastic.
But he works Enclave. Like, I look up to that like so much, and you know, and because of it, he's, you know, I look at him like a business partner. I don't even look at him as like part of the company. I mean, I guess it's one and the same, but again, it's just like, to me, I look up to people who do things that I really don't think I could ever do. Like, honestly, like, and it's like, sounds weird. It's like one of those cliches, but I really mean it. Like, my mom's a better person than I probably will ever be. Like, I don't think I'm a bad person, but man, I mean, she's got something different, you know?
Yeah, don't worry. I'm the one that tells everybody they're a bad person. We all suck. No,
yeah, no, but you know what I mean? Like, seriously, right? Like, I mean, it sounds like you with your dad, right? Like, you're not literally saying your dad's the best person in the world, but to you, he is, and no one will ever trump that, because think about how much he's done for you.
That's it.
And like, I talk about like how in my life I want to provide value. I mean, this is a person who spent the last 22 years providing value and has probably never gotten anything in return. I mean, granted, that's not how a parent looks at it, but you know what I mean? I mean, being a parent is just different.
Can you really repay that, though? It's kind of one of these things where, you know, we like to say we bought mom a house, you know, we did something that was material, and some, of course, they appreciate it and value it, but for the most part, it's you living, thriving, and walking into your...
Honestly, you even just, I'm so glad we did this now. You actually just unlocked something in my brain. I love that word, repay. Truly, I could probably think of a couple more. The people in my life who I truly look at as heroes, I look at them that way because I couldn't ever repay them. Like, in a weird way. Like, that is almost like the weird qualification. Like Brock, like, I think he would feel the same way about me.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, but man, it's like, that's a kid. Like, I don't think I could ever like pay him back, even though, like, I mean, he's literally getting paid, right? I mean, all these different things. They could never pay him back for that level of contribution, right? Like, I'd never pay my mom back for the way that she raised me, right? And you know, and like I said, I mean, there's some others, right? But yeah, I mean, I do think for me, the benchmark of what makes someone a hero is someone who's not even done so much for me, but just been such a specific kind of part of my life that I can just look at them and go, I can't repay you for being here.
This is freaking dope. So like, I'm grabbing who you are as a person. Obviously, in the marketplace, dynamic entrepreneur. You got tremendous mentors up and down. When I think about older partners with Enclave, as you're into, you know, as you're continuing to see evolve and find your niche, what do you see, whether it's the future of Enclave or, listen, you're in Vegas, we got sports gambling, we got, you got sports coming into Vegas, you got a lot of different moving pieces that I'm sure you have experience and interest in. Web3, what are some of your hot button interests as you're moving forward and growing?
So right now we have Enclave and Key, which is our marketing agency, and we do, we have a lot of large clients now. We have a handful of Fortune 500 companies all the way down to small business that we're helping a lot. So I love where Enclave is at, but there's more layers we can add to it, because again, Enclave itself is just this group. It's just this group of a few thousand people that pull all the strings and are just really good people. And so how do you tap into that more? In my life, I've done a lot of angel investing. I've loved being a part of small business, especially one that's not my own.
Yeah.
It's, if nothing else, it's a refreshing call once or twice a week where I can talk about the inner workings of a business that's not my own business. So I've loved it. It's a great way to learn hands-on, and like, I'm putting real money, and I'm putting in $25,000 to $100,000 every time I do this. I do it 8 to 10 times a year. I mean, I'm spending real money on small business.
Nice.
But we've had a couple that have been so successful that my just track record individually is strong enough now that we're actually in the process of starting Enclave Ventures, which is going to be a small fund arm that the business has that invests in creator and tech-driven startups.
My boy.
Second component of that is like Enclave Partners. So we have a whole list of clients. Perfect example, I was sitting at lunch on Tuesday with the Gronk family. They've got Voo Drink, right?
Yeah.
Which is like this new like energy vitamin drink that they've got. They've obviously got a killer marketing arm. They don't really need to hire Enclave and Key to do that. Like we do sports marketing. Like Rob Gronkowski owns half your drink. Like you probably don't need my help on that front.
Yeah.
But I got 600 guys who cumulatively throw 300 camps a year for kids. You don't want to get your energy drink at those camps. We got 40 or 50 other client events we throw every year. So now we're going to have Enclave Partners where a business like that can come in. They don't have to be an Enclave and Key client, but they can be a partner of the Enclave hemisphere, and they can send their drink to these players' camps. They can send it, right? They can do certain things that like a bunch of promo from Rob Gronkowski can't solve for them. A bunch of promo from Gordy can't do, right?
Nice.
But again, like I'm sitting at lunch with them, like in my head, I'm like, of course I look up to you guys. Like, are you kidding me? Like you're Gronk, man. Like, come on, you're the best to ever do it. But at the same time, I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there, value. Like literally during this lunch, it was the first time I met them on Tuesday. I put them in like 8 or 9 group texts with other individuals that I knew would help them. They already off the back, I introduced them to the partnership director for the Miami Heat. Their drink's going to be in the Miami Heat Stadium next year.
Nice.
Like, so all of a sudden, like I brought something to the table that they honestly didn't know how to like get themselves.
Yeah.
As a result of that situation, they're like, oh my God, like we really enjoy hanging out with you. They're like, you got to come to Gronk Beach on Friday. I'll go to Gronk Beach on Friday. So literally on Friday, it wasn't like, oh, like we put your name. They're like, yeah, we got your name on the list. Like, cool. So I get to the list like, oh, okay. They give me this like little gold wristband thing, right?
Willy Wonka tickets, baby.
Next thing I know, I am literally standing on stage and it is no one besides myself, Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, Camille Kostick, Papa G, Papa Gronk, Chris, Glenn, and Dan, all the brothers. And we're standing there going nuts. Chainsmoker, oh, yeah, and the Chainsmokers, right? Because they're on the stage performing, obviously, right? And we're all up there. I've known them for 3 days, but I've provided them with 8 huge bits of value.
Yeah.
By the end of Friday afternoon, we thought we knew each other for 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? And it's like, again, everything I say, like, and that's the other reason I couldn't be like Gary Vee. I really only got like 2 or 3 opinions. Gary Vee's got a whole laundry list of different opinions.
See, that's me.
And they're not wrong.
No, they're good stuff.
Provide value. Don't be a loser. Like,
thank you.
Like literally, like that's kind of where I sit, right?
Yeah.
Like everything all these different stories, all these different things we've talked about, I just naturally revert back to those 2 things because like those are the 2 things that are like fundamental to me, and everything else is just part of the stem, part of the blossom from that.
Man, you kill it because fundamentals have to be like it has to be simple, right? In order for you to really get it, in order to be ingratiated. Elevated integrity is like one of my like. Listen, man, don't be a loser.
Yeah,
man, and it's not about this. Ain't about like moral perfection. It's about just be stable, man. Don't be a fraud. You know what I mean? Like
no, and it's like
that's the whole thing right there, right?
And so going back to the 22-year-old thing. So I'm standing up there, right? You don't think everything in me is like, man, dude, pull out your phone right now and take a video. This is a next level video. But I'm like, to me, like that's what a loser would do. Like a loser in that situation would pull out their phone. And like, I'm not saying a loser is it like screw you, you're a bad person. But I'm saying a loser in the sense of like, they're not going to win that moment. They're not going to catch that moment, right? I caught that moment. Woo. We really hit it off. So much so that Camille's like, me and Camille specifically really hit it off. Like she literally texted me this morning. I haven't seen her in 4 days. Like we've been texting every single day. It's about different stuff.
Oh.
And she's like, so like, do you have a girlfriend? Blah, blah, blah. And I have a great girlfriend. We've been together over a year and a half now. I'm like, yeah, I have a girlfriend. Where's she? Oh, she's at the office. Like my girlfriend and I work together, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, she's at the office. Oh, she's not out here. Give me your phone. So Camille says, give me your phone. I give Camille my phone. She takes my phone. She switches over to video. She goes, Nora, Blake's told me all about you. Get out of the office and come to Encore Beach Club. Blah, 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 blah. I text a video and it's like that. That's obviously a different thing, but it's like that's with it. Like now there's a real relationship there, right? Like she's like taking my phone, giving my girlfriend who she's never met, who's not there, who with this kid that she doesn't know from Adam until 2 hours ago. That's where we're at now. Because even when I'm talking to her, I'm like, hey, like whenever you come to Win, like obviously if you need anything, like you let me know, whatever. She tells me this whole story about how like when she got the call to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, she was at the Win on vacation. So she's got this huge like sentimental attachment to the hotel and it's this whole thing. And I'm getting to know her as a person. And honestly, I can learn from Camille. if I get to know her as a person.
Absolutely.
What am I going to learn from the photo? Like, I'm going to learn how many of my friends like her in the picture, right? Because they're not going to like that picture for me. They're liking that picture for Camille anyways. So,
well said, bro.
You know what I mean?
Man, this is gems because, and that's what we're finding at the end of the day. It's everything about recognizing the value in people, right? It's always going to be in the EQ space that we're going to win at the highest level. Everybody's got skills, right? It's like, and athletics really shows us that, especially when you weed out that 1%. And I tell every guy who gets their shot, draft just passed, and every guy who got drafted and everybody who's an undrafted free agent, they're the best in the world at what they do.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the numbers of kids who started playing, whether it's just high school sports, and now you're looking at these guys who are currently on a roster, you're the best in the world.
Yeah.
And although there's a rookie who he hasn't sniffed the field yet, he needs to know that. And now he needs to take that confidence and build his resume. He has skills, but if he doesn't have the internal fortitude, if he doesn't have the self-awareness, if he doesn't have any vision, if he doesn't have the mindset to know what time to push that button, what time to pull back, what time to give his all on special teams, even though he feels like it's shot, right? And this is all you're doing every day, establishing an amazing.
I just think the most uncomfortable position a person can be in is when it's time for them to sell themselves and they don't feel like they're the best at what they do.
Oh man, you hitting the heart.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
you hitting my heart right there.
No, but if it comes time for you to when it comes time to sell your juice, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be really tough for you to sell juice to someone if you think that your juice sucks.
Real talk.
Right?
Well, that's one of the things that took the longest for me to get to the market. Like, as far as me, my person, my brand is like, well, I know who I am, but until I can present this in a way where it's like, where the value, because if I'm gonna like, listen, I gotta hold my value, and if I can't deliver it the way that my vision can uphold it to, we're just not gonna go. We'll just wait, because when I enter the market, then it's takeover time.
Right.
Right. Like, it's like but the product has to be right. Right. The product has to be right, or it's got to be consistent with what you're saying, whatever it is. Right. Because we got junk products. We got.
No, but honestly, I think you don't. That's why I give you credit for already being an entrepreneur. Like, you wouldn't come out with a junk product right now. It would bother you too much.
Oh my God, it would kill me.
But if you were here to make money, like a business owner is, you would come out with a junk product if you thought you could make money on it.
That's a bar right there. That is 100% a bar right there. So yeah, listen. I'm growing 1,000 times over, just catching the wind vibes. The winds are blowing.
I will say this is like a fun side note. So like I said, I didn't really know Steve that much growing up. I knew him till I was 6, and then I knew him again since I was like 18 years old. Like, I'll sit and have conversations with him, and he'll be talking, and I'll be like, so like Mark, who's sitting here, has met him. Brock, my girlfriend, like, we had a conversation actually, I did see him even more recently than I mentioned. We saw him in New York like maybe a month or two ago, and he starts talking about culture, and it was so weird. Like, I literally, like, we all started looking at each other. Like, he said things the exact same way that I said them, but I've never heard him say it that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's where I go to, like, I do think a lot of this comes in the gene. Like, I really do think that, like, there's I've got his genes, and honestly, he's got his father's genes. Yeah. Like, it's our grandfather who died in 1961. He was one of the first people I ever got open heart surgery. Didn't make it off the table when he was like 46 years old. So Steve's dad died when Steve was 21, and my dad was 10. They're 11 years apart, and there's so much there that he has learned. And that's why I say, I said, there's one thing in your whole life you could have done differently. What would you do? He says, Blake, and he's serious, because he'll get real serious. His jawline will clench up like this, and he'll go,
yeah.
Everything. I'd give up everything for 15 minutes to walk through the Wynn Hotel with my dad. If he could have seen what I built, I would have made him, he would have dropped dead there. You know what I mean? Like, and he's not wrong. So and then the business before that, he ran a bingo business. So it was a small gambling operation right outside of Washington, D.C., and that's the business that Steve and my dad grew up on. And Steve ended up meeting some of the right folks, being brought out to Las Vegas, and decided that this random little stamp of desert deserved a makeover. I mean, you gotta understand, like,
legendary. Like,
Steve is Golden Nugget, Treasure Island, Bellagio, Mirage, Wynn, Encore, Wynn Macau, Wynn Palace, Golden Nugget Biloxi, Golden Nugget Atlantic City. These are some of the nicest resorts ever created. I didn't know half of those. I didn't know that he was on half.
And
Wynn Boston. I forgot about Wynn Boston. That exists now too.
That's insane.
You probably don't go there though. You don't spend much time in Boston.
Nah, I ain't got too many friends out there right now. But I'm looking for some.
Yeah.
I'm looking to do a tour in Boston. What you think?
Yeah, I think Rodney Harrison's living out there these days, so maybe you guys can catch up.
I'm about to say he might not even be good in Boston right now. Who knows?
I know, no kidding.
Nah, he did way more good for them than that one moment. So, bro, like, I consider this the beginning of many conversations. Hopefully on camera, man. I mean, you're inspirational on a lot of different levels. So, like I said, I would even just be honest, like, man, this kid's one of my mentors, man. We're gonna chop it up. We're gonna keep growing. We're gonna keep doing great things together. But I mean, you're just a dynamic person in the way that you think, right? I think it's all there, whether it's genes, vision, grit. But you got it the right way, man. You're full of the right stuff. So I want to thank you, man, for taking some time to catch the moment. Now I got one last one too, because in your 22 years on this earth, there actually has been some major highlight reels. Like, I don't even know if you're really putting the highlight reels on Instagram, right? Like, some of the stuff you talked about was the highlight reel, right? So what would you say up to this point has been the defining moment for you that you maybe revert back to? Because when people ask me about the helmet catch, well, I say, you know what? It's like a memorial. I go back to it. I revisit it. All the good vibes and good feelings. I can thank God that this happened to me. But of course, you got to move on and continue to establish what has been the one seed of accomplishment or moment that you kind of maybe that's your baby.
Probably the tour I did on YouTube. Like, it's not that I haven't had moments that I consider catch kind of moments in Enclave, but no, I look at it like where do I think the story really starts? Like, granted, that story starts even earlier than that, but I told you about that note that I have in my phone. Like, I still got that note in my phone. It still will say on it the right timeline. I've never touched a word of it. And like, when I was like standing up there, like, what made me like literally like break down and cry in the middle of downtown Milwaukee was the fact that it was like, this was the first time that like I manifested something, and to the T it got done. And honestly, even a little bit better than I had manifested. It really felt that way. Amazing. And then it was like, next day Cleveland, same thing. Next day Detroit, same thing. Like, that'll show you how much I like really cared about this. Like, I could tell you in order, like Milwaukee, Cleveland, Detroit, Boston, Rahway, New York City, upstate New York, Fort Lauderdale, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, LA, Seattle, Portland. Like, that was the order I did my tour. Vegas, like Toronto, London, like I went Glasgow. Like, I'm like standing in Glasgow at 17 years old, and I didn't know anyone there to like host my event. So I said, everyone meet me in downtown, the middle of the square. We had police like end up like having to shut it down. We had like 500 people come. and that was in Glasgow. That was the one that didn't have 1,000 people, 500 people in Glasgow, Scotland. And I was only there because I was golfing. But it's like those moments, like, I'm like, man, if I could do this, right? Like, because clearly you have impact on people if they're willing to dedicate that amount of time to you. And then all of a sudden, not only are they in Glasgow, but they're like, I couldn't miss it that you were coming, but I live in Edinburgh. Edinburgh is a 7-hour drive, right? Like, all these places that are far away. Like, I flew in from Wales, I flew, right, whatever it may be. And that to me was like, okay, if I can do this, and then I then go to a business where I just got to figure out how to provide value to one person. I just provided value for over 30,000 people in a month. Like, I can provide value to one guy in one dinner. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, bro.
Like, it makes Gordy, it makes you, honestly, it makes everyone else simpler.
Yes. From
the standpoint that it's like, if you could do it at this level, you could do it at that level, right?
Absolutely.
It's a lot different figuring out how to provide value for 30,000, you know? And also too, like, and I didn't really touch on this, and I don't mean to prolong this, but
give it to me. I'm here for it.
I went to the same school pre-K through 12, 55 kids in the grade, the same 55 kids.
Same building for 12 years?
Same building for 13 years, same 55 kids, like same everything. So literally until I was like 16 years old, and granted, I did very well sneaker reselling, but I did all that on eBay and over the internet. Yeah. So like, I didn't really know a lot of people from that time. So like, you're talking about a kid who really, I bet I had met less than 150 people in my life until I was 16 years old. Like, that's how kind of sheltered, small, because again, like, I wasn't partying, I was working, but I was working on a business behind a computer screen.
Smart guy.
And and so for me, that was like at times, like, it actually gave me a little bit of social anxiety. Like, whoa, like, this is a lot of people. Like, this is just so much, like human.
It really is. Like, it's a whole lot of energy, a whole lot of demands.
It's all a lot. And even that, like, when I went on tour, like, that was my first time doing that. So like I would see the numbers on the screen, but then when you see it in person, you know, I mean, I had someone who I don't even want to say their name because I think it was supposed to be private, but I will tell the story. Like, Chicago was actually the first city I forgot about. But
Chi-town.
When I did my stop in Chicago, this kid comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Juan, do you know, like when I was in the hospital, like dealing with I'm not gonna say what it was, like dealing with something, like I would watch videos to get me through. I got through what I was going through, and I actually went out and I won like a Paralympic silver medal, and he gave me his silver medal. See, like I literally have a Paralympic silver medal in my house, actually in a safety deposit box, but I literally have this thing from someone who like, I mean, I didn't even know his name until he came up to me and told me his story. He says, "Here it is," and he's crying. I said, "I can't take this. I can't take this. No, like I'm leaving it here. Like this is for you. Like I have an Olympic champion telling me like I have this because of you. Like this is yours."
Yeah.
Like he's only getting one of those. He only did ever get one of those, and I'm still in touch with him. And I say, you want me to send it back? You need it for speeches, whatever. He said, like Blake, like that is yours. And like to this day, that's still the only time I've ever even seen him in person. You know what I mean? And it's like that level of impact. I look at it like another person I probably couldn't repay. He looks at me as someone who's probably clearly provided him a ton of value.
Yeah.
That's how I want to always be known. Like if you hear my name get said, right? If you talk about me to somebody else, like I want the reviews to be glowing. Man, you know what? I'm going to connect you to Blake. You couldn't help Blake, but Blake can help you, and Blake loves doing that. So like you're comfortable connecting me to someone in your network because you know that I'm going to deliver and everything like that. And so like, and that soundbite I must admit came from Jordan Greenfield, one of the companies I invested in. He was on a podcast. I was listening to it yesterday, and he name dropped me and said like, I will always connect people to Blake because if I connect anyone to him, even if they have nothing to do with what he does, he will always be solid, and I know what I'm going to get in Blake. And like as I was hearing that, I like sent it to my team because I'm like, see, like this is what like I'm talking about. Like I'm not saying like look at me, like this is what it takes. I'm saying like no, this is how you need to be talked about when you're not sitting there. Because the alternative is like, again, it's easier to talk about the negative things about somebody than the positive things. It's very easy. If I bring up the New York Giants to you, you got a whole bunch of good memories there.
I do.
But I bet it'd be pretty easy for you to share some not so good memories.
Oh gosh.
Right?
I got a few of those, man. It is easy.
And honestly, it's easier to share those than the good ones.
It is, man. I mean, like I said, you know, and I wouldn't share much detail in the negative ones because that's how good the good ones are.
No, and that's totally fair. But you would still maybe even tease some of those things easier than you would tease some of the wins.
Yeah, mostly because of disappointment. But absolutely, absolutely. It's that's the nature of a relationship, right? Because, and I tell people like, disappointment is the blow to the heart that actually shapes the narrative of most of your conversation, because when things are well, they're well, and that's your expectation. The moment you find out somebody's not who they are, it's like, oh my goodness. And that has zero reference to the New York Football Giants. But the moment that, you know, when you've upheld someone, right? And this is the amazing power of relationships and how the business relationships, they can be restored, right? Relationship to business. But once I found out that person is blemished in some way, can you still value them the same way, or can you still uphold the relationship? And maybe for business, it's not, you know, maybe you do need to move on. Maybe for the nature of the relationship, at whatever level, maybe you do need to move on. But ultimately, as you've built the value in your name and all the treasures, skills, and worth that Blake Wynn has, when someone says, man, you need to be connected to Blake, your goal in your life is to uphold that, so that, not that you're perfect, but that you can uphold the integrity that you've accrued through your name. And that's eternal value, brother, because you've already seen just your commitment to people yield inspirational results. That's killer.
And I'll tell you, because this is something you did at, I want to share my biggest piece of inspiration. There's one story that I use. Can I have my phone? I
need this.
It's one like small paragraph, and I have it in my phone. I look at it all the time, and I want to share it with you because I think you'll really like it. And I don't want to mess it up because the way that it's supposed to be said is the way that it's worth saying.
I love it.
The first time, because I've had multiple people that like I respect at the highest level tell the story to me. Like I've heard it come out of Tom Brady's mouth. I've heard it come out of my uncle's mouth. Like I've only heard it come out of like those kinds of people's mouths. And it's like one of those stories that like seriously everybody should know. This is a very quick one from Alan Watts is the guy's name. He goes, so once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commemorate. They said, we're so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate. Farmer says, maybe. The next day, the horse came back. But when he came back, he brought back 7 wild horses with him. And in the evening, everyone came back and said, oh my gosh, isn't this lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses. Farmer says, maybe. The following day, his son tried to break one of the horses, and while riding it, he was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors came back and said, oh dear, that's too bad. Farmer responded, maybe. The next day, the conscription officers came around to conscript people into the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. Again, all the neighbors came around and said, isn't that great? Again, he said, maybe. So the point is, and that's the end of it, and so the point is that all these things can happen in life that in the moment can seem good and or bad, but as long as you really understand the long-term goal of what you're trying to do, then all those little things, maybe it is good, but maybe it's not so bad, right? Like the failures, right? Like that's where I think that failure gets a lot of misconceptions, because you're right. Maybe it isn't bad if you fail, because maybe that failure prompts a win.
Absolutely.
It's being okay with that failure and like feeling like that's like a way to justify coming up short, that where I say it falls off.
Absolutely.
But you really never know what you're going to get. You know, like when we think about it, we literally connected on a cold DM. I said, I'm coming to New York. Like, let's go get some pita.
Yeah, yeah.
For whatever reason, you agreed to go take this at then like 19 or 20-year-old to pita. I had 2 other 19 or 20-year-olds that worked at the company, that are still at the company, that you even just saw last night, come with me. And it's like, when we first met, they were like, so what are we doing meeting with David Tyree? I don't know. Like, what's going to happen? Anything going to happen? Maybe. Maybe not. But no, but seriously, like, that's how you always have to live your life, is you can't. And I think that's where people that are keeping score of the favors and of the stuff like that, that's where they fall short, because, like, maybe is a loss in their eyes. Like, maybe is the most promising part of my life, you know, is the fact that it can go, anything can go anyway. You know what I mean? And so, like, yeah, I love that. I want to share that with you. I mean, that's like I think about that all the time, like, especially on the bad days. I'm like, you know what? Maybe this was good. You know what? Like, I've gone through, you know, I mean, I've fired my best friend. I mean, there has been those shit moments.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what? Maybe that was the right thing to do, because you know what? 5 years from now, he may be somewhere in his life and he's like, man, had you not fired me, I wouldn't have been able to be here.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And if it doesn't work out that way, that's the other side of the maybe, and that is life, right? At some point, it does boil down to life, but it all goes back to like, maybe. You know?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well,
so that's why you just got to be a good person, do your thing, you know?
Well said, man. You're elevating integrity. You're leading the way. Listen, man, you've caught a lot of moments, and there's a lot of great things to expect moving forward. I got to thank you, man. We're going to wrap this one up, and we're going to open up another dialogue, because we're doing this thing, you know, there's no maybes about us moving forward. We're going to continue to get great done. Thank you for coming through Catch the Moment.
Man, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Man, you're my guy, man. We'll check in. Listen, everybody, y'all make sure y'all check in. This right here is a life changer. Tune into every moment. Catch the moment, subscribe, do all that stuff. And I don't like to, I haven't got my, you know, my wording and my verbiage right, but subscribe, share every platform. Catches. Blake Wynn, CEO of Enclave and Key, is changing the game. Y'all be back with us. Catch the moment.